2 years. Then I got there 5 years. They said to me before we started, and that's a true story, before the project started. Celine Dion's son was supposed to follow her footsteps. Everyone expected him to sing. Everyone expected him to stay in the music world. But René Charles had other plans. At 24, he finally spoke the truth about what he's been doing behind closed doors. The family kept it quiet for years. His mother was worried. His late father would have been shocked. But René Charles didn't care about their fears anymore. What he admitted this year explains why he's been so secretive and why Celine has been so protective of his privacy. Celine Dion was born on March 30th, 1968 in a small town called Charlemagne near Montreal. She was the youngest of 14 children. Their house was so full that her mother joked there wasn't even space for one more spoon. With 16 people under one roof, the noise and energy never stopped. There was no luxury, no quiet corner, just constant movement and shared everything. Celine was a baby in a world of chaos, one of nearly 20 mouths to feed. Her family lived like most, in their neighborhood, crowded, noisy, and poor. As she later said, they didn't know they were struggling because everyone around them lived the same way. There wasn't even a crib waiting for her. When she came home from the hospital, her parents placed her in a dresser drawer lined with blankets. It wasn't a quirky decision. It was their only option. There was no money for extras, no room for baby furniture. At the time, the average Canadian family made around $6,000 a year, but the Dons had far less and far more children. Her early life was shaped by limits and hard choices. As she grew, space didn't open up. It only got tighter. Celine had to share a small bed with multiple sisters, sometimes 3 to a mattress. The house was so packed that couches, floors, and even hallways became sleeping spots. She later said, "The girls slept like sardines, crammed together every night." This wasn't just a few years of squeezing in. It lasted through her teenage years. While most Canadian families were shrinking, hers felt like its own crowded village. Her father worked as a butcher, long hours for very little pay. Her mother stayed home, managing the household and sewing clothes from scraps and hand-me-downs. It was a family powered by survival, not savings. But despite all the hardship, there was always one thing in the air: music. Her father sang, her mother played violin, and even her name came from a song. They named her Celine, after a French ballad they loved, almost like a quiet hope that one day their little girl would carry that song into the world. But even with all that love and music at home, the outside world wasn't kind. In school, Celine was mocked constantly. She was skinny, had big teeth, and didn't look like the other kids. They called her vampire. The teasing wasn't just once in a while. It was every day. Celine later said the bullying left scars she never forgot. She remembered the dread she felt walking into class, knowing exactly what was waiting. Childhood pictures from that time show a quiet girl who seemed unsure of herself, someone trying to disappear. When she began singing publicly as a teenager, things didn't get easier. Local tabloids mocked her looks and called her K9 Dion because of her teeth. She was only a child, but adult journalists joined in the ridicule. She was getting noticed for her voice, but the headlines were focused on her appearance. By the time she was 18, she'd had enough. She quietly stepped away, got dental surgery, caps and braces, and came back ready to be seen for what she could do, not how she looked. School had never been a happy place for her. She once said very simply, "I detested school." It wasn't just about the bullying. She didn't feel like she belonged there. Her real education came from her home. Her siblings were her teachers. The dinner table was her classroom. She learned how to sing, perform, and survive from the people around her, not from books or chalkboards. When money was tight, the Dion family didn't give up. They formed a band, literally. All 14 children were part of it. They called themselves Dion's Family and performed at local venues across Quebec. Celine was just 5 when she sang in her parents' piano bar. She wasn't treated like a novelty. She was part of the act. By age 12, she had already written her first song and recorded a demo. Her very first public performance was at her brother Michel's wedding in 1973. This wasn't just about fun, it was survival. The shows helped bring in money, and more importantly, they gave Celine a stage. While the schoolyard made her feel small, the family basement made her feel safe. After school, she wouldn't hang out with friends. She'd run straight home and dive into music with her siblings. Their basement became her refuge. It was loud and alive, filled with instruments and laughter and song. It was in that basement that Celine found her voice. It was where she turned pain into power. Every note she sang was a way to fight back against the world that mocked her. In June 1980, a little girl walked into a local studio with her family. They had saved just enough money to record a demo. It wasn't fancy, just a few simple songs written with help from her mother and siblings. At that age, most kids were still figuring out how to ride a bike. But this girl had something else on her mind, music. That day, surrounded by her family, she sang into a studio mic and unknowingly took the first step on a path that would eventually reach hundreds of millions. What started in a kitchen would one day echo in stadiums across the world. Her mother, Terrace, didn't just believe in her voice. She staked everything on it. She mortgaged their family home just to send that demo to a man named René Angel. She chose him because he managed Quebec's most famous singer, Jeanette Reno, and Celine looked up to her. But the family only had enough money to send one tape. If it landed in the wrong hands or got tossed in the trash, it would all be over. The Dons had 14 kids. Their father was a baker. This wasn't just a gamble. It was everything they had. And somehow, that tape made it. René listened. He didn't just hear a song. He heard something he had never heard before. He later said it was the best voice of his life. Some say he cried. Others say he sat in silence, stunned. What he did next shocked everyone. He mortgaged his own house, over $100,000 at the time, to fund her career. A girl with no stage experience, just 12 years old. Friends told him he was out of his mind, but he didn't care. He believed, and by 1983, she was already a rising star in Quebec. By 1988, she had conquered Eurovision. She was just getting started. Their first meeting wasn't staged like a big audition. When the Dion family arrived, René didn't even have a real microphone. He handed her a pencil and said, "Pretend you're singing to a full stadium." She didn't hesitate. She stood there, pencil in hand, and sang Senate Graph. Like her life depended on it, René couldn't believe what he was hearing. Later, he said she sang like there were 10,000 people in the room. In reality, there were just a few family members and a manager. But that moment sealed her future. Between the ages of 13 and 18, Celine released 9 French-language albums. Most teenagers were worrying about exams or school dances. Celine was recording hit after hit. At 15, she made history in France by becoming the first Canadian artist to receive a gold record there. The song was D'amour you détire. At just 18, Celine Dion had a secret she couldn't tell anyone. She had fallen deeply in love with her manager, René Angel, who was 44 years old. The age gap alone would have been enough to stir gossip, but it went even further than that. She kept a photo of him under her pillow and stared at it every night while sharing a room with her mother. Her obsession made her feel physically sick. She daydreamed about him. She couldn't sleep. She knew it was impossible. René had already been divorced twice. He was old enough to be her father. And yet, she couldn't help herself. The more forbidden it felt, the more powerful the feelings grew. No one in her family knew until her mother found out. Celine Dion had always been Celine's biggest supporter. She helped launch her career. She believed in her voice. But when she discovered her teenage daughter had fallen for a man nearly 3 decades older, she was horrified. René wasn't just older. He had been in Celine's life since she was 12. Tizi saw it as dangerous, even reckless. She confronted Celine, probably expecting the infatuation to pass. But instead of backing down, Celine stood her ground. She told her mother, "We live in a free country. I can love whoever I want." She wasn't just fighting for her feelings. She was fighting for her independence. and she wasn't going to let anyone stop her. A year later, when she turned 19, everything changed. What had once been a hidden crush became a real relationship. Their first official date happened quietly without any public attention. For years, Celine and Renee kept their romance secret. Only close friends and family knew. They were careful. They knew people would judge them, but the love between them was real and they were willing to wait. They hid in plain sight. He was still her manager, still her mentor, but behind the scenes, their bond kept growing stronger. At the peak of her early fame, Celine made a shocking decision. She disappeared from the spotlight for 18 months. It wasn't a scandal, it was a plan. She capped her teeth, changed her hair, learned fluent English. She didn't want to be a child star anymore. She wanted to be global. The break began in late 1986. And when she returned, she was completely transformed. Her voice hadn't changed, but her image had, and the world noticed. Then came the night that changed her life. On April 30th, 1988, in front of more than 600 million viewers, Celine Dion won the Eurovision Song Contest. She was only 20. The performance was electric. She sang for Switzerland, not Canada, but it didn't matter. When the final votes came in, Switzerland edged past the UK by a single point, 137 to 136. That narrow win made her famous across Europe overnight. The song Ne parte paso became the last French-language song to win the contest. And Celine, once a shy teenager from Quebec, was now a continental star. In 1990, she made her biggest leap yet. Her first English-language album, Unison, changed everything. It sold over 1.2 million copies in the United States and went platinum. In Canada, it was certified 7 times platinum. The hit single, Where Does My Heart Beat, now reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. For a French-speaking artist, that was almost unheard of, but Celine made it look effortless. The album earned her Juno Awards for Album of the Year and Female Vocalist of the Year. She was no longer just a Canadian success. She was breaking into the global pop world and fast. Her first major American TV appearance came that same year on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. After hearing her sing live, Leno looked straight into the camera and predicted she would have an extraordinary career. That moment mattered. No one had said something like that about a new French-Canadian singer before. And yet, it turned out to be exactly right. That one TV moment opened doors for her all across the United States. 2 years later, the Wall Street Journal, normally focused on business and finance, called her, oh, once-in-a-generation voice. That kind of praise from such a serious outlet stunned even her team. She was no longer being compared to pop stars. She was being grouped with legends. Her voice had become her calling card, strong, pure, and unforgettable. And critics were finally giving her the recognition she deserved. Then came the night of March 30th, 1992, her 24th birthday. Celine stepped onto the Academy Awards stage to perform Beauty and the Beast with Pebble Bryson. The song had just won an Oscar and a Grammy. She sang it live in front of Hollywood's biggest names, and her performance stopped the show. That same night, she launched her next English-language album. The buzz was instant. Within 24 hours, she was back on The Tonight Show. And by then, everyone agreed. Jay Leno's prediction had come true. On December 17, 1994, Celine Dion surprised the entire country by getting married live on national television. Millions across Canada tuned in to watch her walk down the aisle at the Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal. She was just 26, wearing a silk gown with a twin-tip train and a tiara, so heavy it weighed 7 lb. Over 500 guests filled the church, which was decorated with more than 10,000 fresh flowers. What made it even more dramatic was that it was the first time Celine and René Angel revealed their relationship to the world. He was 26 years older than her, and up until then, their romance had been kept quiet. But the road after their wedding wasn't easy. While her music career kept reaching new heights, Celine faced years of heartbreak trying to have children. In her early 30s, she started fertility treatments that stretched on for nearly a decade. Things became even harder in 1999 when Renee was diagnosed with throat cancer. Before beginning treatment, they froze his sperm, but doctors soon found his sperm count was already low. Natural conception became almost impossible. They went through at least 7 rounds of IVF. Each one took a toll physically and emotionally. They also suffered a miscarriage. Though Celine was one of the most famous voices in the world, she kept these painful experiences private. When she finally gave birth, it felt like a quiet miracle. In May 2000, she flew to New York for 2 surgical procedures at a top fertility clinic. The surgeries happened just 4 days apart. Her team said she needed at least 10 days of rest afterward. She paused her career completely to focus on becoming a mother. The pressure was massive, not just from the media, but from her own hopes. Still, she kept going. Then on January 25th, 2001, their son was born in Florida. They named him Rene Charles. He weighed 6 lb 80 and arrived 3 weeks early. Celine was 33 years old. The world celebrated with her. After years of setbacks and sadness, the moment felt perfect. She took a break from the spotlight for 3 full years to focus on her new family. It wasn't just a happy ending. It was proof of what hope and patience can do. But the story didn't end there. In a 2001 interview, Celine shared something few expected. When Renee Charles was conceived through IVF, another embryo was also created and it was still frozen. She said she felt deeply attached to it and couldn't bear to leave it unused. That embryo stayed frozen for almost 9 years. Then in 2010, it helped bring her twin boys into the world. The same science that made her a mother once gave her the chance to expand her family again. Long before all of this, Celine had already become one of the biggest music stars on earth. In 1996, she released Falling Into You. The album changed everything. It sold over 32 million copies around the world. In the United States, it sold about 12 million. The UK added another 2.1 million. It wasn't just a bestseller. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1997. It beat out albums by the Beatles and Beck. France, Germany, Canada, and Australia all crossed the 1 million mark in sales. Even 25 years later, people still love songs like Because You Loved Me and It's All Coming Back to Me Now. Each of those songs sold millions on their own. Then came a song no one could escape. My Heart Will Go On, released in 1997 for the Titanic movie, became the biggest hit of her career. By 1998, it had sold 18 million physical copies. It was number 1 in over 20 countries. In Europe, it stayed at the top of the Eurochart, Hot 100 for 17 weeks. Germany, France, and the UK combined for over 4.6 million physical copies. In the US, its radio play reached 117 million listeners in 1 month, a record at the time. And even now, people stream it hundreds of millions of times each year. A whole new generation continues to discover it. This success wasn't just about one song or one album. Celine became the first woman to have 2 albums sell more than 30 million copies. Falling Into You reached 32 million. Let's Talk About Love, released in 1997, followed with 31 million. No other female artist has done that. These weren't short-lived hits either. They stayed on charts around the world for months. Songs like My Heart Will Go On helped push them to unimaginable heights. In 2003, she changed the future of Las Vegas. Caesar's Palace built a $95 million arena just for her. It was called the Coliseum and held 4,300 seats. Before that, Vegas was seen as a final stop for fading stars. But Celine proved otherwise. Over 5 years, she sold more than 3 million tickets and earned over $385 million. That success made other major stars follow her lead. Elton John, Britney Spears, and Lady Gaga among them. What began with her became the blueprint for modern Vegas residencies. Celine Dion's love story with Renee Angel was unlike any other. But behind the fame, lights, and music, they faced a private battle that stretched across 17 painful years. Rene was first diagnosed with throat cancer in April 1998. He fought through surgery and treatment and made what doctors called a miraculous recovery. But the cancer came back. In December 2013, another tumor appeared. It was removed, but the damage had already taken its toll. Rennie couldn't eat anymore. He had to be fed through a tube. Celine often handled it herself, caring for him between rehearsals and performances. Still, Renee stayed involved in her career. Even when he couldn't speak, he helped shape her Las Vegas shows and world tours. Each time his cancer returned, Celine dropped everything. In August 2014, she canceled her Las Vegas shows and a planned tour in Asia. These weren't small decisions. They cost millions. But she never hesitated. She said she wanted to give every ounce of her energy to help her husband heal. In early 2000, when she was only 32 and one of the world's top selling artists, Celine stunned everyone by walking away from the spotlight. She took a 2-year break, not just to help Renee recover, but also to start their family. It was a rare move in the music world, and it came straight from the heart. That decision paid off. In October 2010, Celine gave birth to twins at the age of 42. Their names were Nelson and Eddie, but the journey there was not easy. She went through 6 rounds of IVF. She had 1 miscarriage. The twins came from embryos stored years earlier. Each baby weighed just over 5 lbs. One was named after Nelson Mandela, the other after Eddie Martin, Celine's longtime producer. It felt like a miracle. Even as Rene's health declined, he and Celine remained partners. They worked together on her residency in Las Vegas. Rene passed away in January 2016 at the age of 73. In the final months, Celine was feeding him herself. He had stepped down as her manager, but he was still the heart of her career. She stayed by his side until the very end, just as she had promised. In 2024, the documentary I Am Celine Dion revealed a side of her life fans had never seen. In one haunting moment, cameras captured her having a seizure during a recording session. Her body stiffened. She moaned in pain for almost 8 minutes. She couldn't move or speak. Her medical team had to act fast, giving her 2 doses of emergency nasal spray while trying to keep her conscious. The director wanted to stop filming, but Celine insisted they keep rolling. She wanted people to see what it's really like to live with her illness. Celine's diagnosis shocked the world. She had stiff person syndrome, or SPS. Only 1 or 2 people in a million have it. The disorder causes muscle spasms that can be triggered by sound, touch, or even emotion. It can twist the body, damage the spine, and take away the ability to walk. There is no cure. Treatment often includes benzodiazepines and botulinum toxin injections. For Celine, the diagnosis came after years of confusing symptoms. Doctors only found it after the pandemic gave her a chance to finally stop and focus on her health. Before that, she had hidden her illness from the world. Even when she was in pain, even when her voice wouldn't cooperate, she kept performing. She did as many as 70 shows in a single year. Behind the scenes, she was seeing specialists, trying new treatments, and keeping up appearances. Pretending everything was fine nearly broke her, but she didn't want to let her fans down. It wasn't until August 2022 that doctors confirmed her condition. In December, she told her fans the truth. The weight of hiding it was finally gone. Now her sons are part of her care team. Nelson and Eddie are only 14. But Celine has trained them to spot the signs of a crisis. They know how to turn her on her side. They know how to press panic buttons around the house. They know when to call for help. Every night they do practice drills. They even check on her if she's taking too long to get ready for bed. It's a responsibility no child should have, but they handle it with love. Even though Renee is gone, Celine still feels him. In 2021, she said she often senses his presence. When things get hard, she talks to him. She feels him with her during the darkest moments of her illness. He was her husband, her manager, and her best friend. That bond has never left her. Celine's strength has been recognized around the world. On May 21, 2008, she received France's highest civilian honor, the Legion of Honor. President Nicolas Sarkozy gave it to her at the Elysee Palace. Very few foreigners ever receive it. By then, she had already sold more than 12 million copies of her French-language album, Deux, making her the most successful French-language singer of all time. In 2023, Rolling Stone named her the 10th greatest Canadian artist ever. She ranked just behind legends like Joni Mitchell and Neil Young. No other solo female pop act from Canada placed higher. The recognition came decades after her first hit songs, proving that her impact has lasted through every trend and change in the industry. Her eldest son, René Charles, is making his own mark. At 24, he's found success in two completely different worlds. In 2021, he released a hip-hop EP. In July 2025, he shocked the poker community by advancing deep into the World Series of Poker main event. Out of more than 9,700 players, he made it to day 5 with 2.8 million chips. He earned about $70,000 and showed that poker talent runs in the family. His father, René, had also been a serious player. Now, René Charles is continuing that legacy with music in one hand and cards in the other.